President, what about Russia and Ukraine? You're talking about ceasefires. What's the latest?
I would have said 5 times we would have had a deal. I've spoken to President Putin a lot. I got along with him very well. But 5 times, and every time 4 times maybe. But we've had discussions. You and I have had discussions. Yeah. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen. It's been great being with you, and thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And you've done a fantastic job with regard to the trade deal. You know, they wanted a trade deal here for years, many years, through many different terms of different people, and you got it done. So I want to congratulate you on that, and it's a great deal for both. It brings unity. We didn't need unity, but it brings us even closer together. I think it's good for both parties. We also discussed obviously Gaza. And I think before we get to phase 2, which is, you know, what's going to happen afterwards, we want to get the children fed. We made a contribution a week ago of $60 million, all going into food. We only hope the food goes to the people that need it, because so much, as you know, when you do something there, it gets taken by Hamas or somebody, but it gets taken. But and we're prepared to help. You know, we want to help. It's a terrible situation. The whole thing is terrible. It's been bad for many years, but it's great to hear you feel the same way that I do. We have to help on a humanitarian basis before we do anything. We have to get the kids fed. So we've been sending in a lot of food. A lot of the food that's been going there has been sent by the United States. I spoke yesterday with the president of the European Union, Ursula, who was terrific also on the subject, and she's going to play a big role also in helping us. So we have a good group of countries that are going to help with the humanitarian needs, which is food, sanitation, and some other things. It's very difficult to deal with Hamas. As I said, you know, we got a tremendous amount of hostages out, but it would take place in drips and drabs. You'd get 10, you'd get 5, you'd get 2, you'd get 10, 12. We get 12 one time. Many of them would come to the White House, and they were so thankful. But I always said, when you get down to the final 10 or 20, you're not going to be able to make a deal with these people because they use them as a shield. And when they give them up, they no longer have a shield. And the people of Israel feel so strongly about the hostages. Some people would take a different view, but they feel so strongly about the hostages. So that's an ongoing process. Hamas has become very difficult to deal with in the last couple of days because they don't want to give up these last 20 because they think as long as we have them, they have protection. But I don't think it can work that way. So I'm speaking to Bibi Netanyahu, and we are coming up with various plans. We're going to see. It's a very difficult situation. If they didn't have the hostages, things would go very quickly. But they do, and we know where they have them in some cases, and you don't want to go riding roughshod over that area because that means those hostages will be killed. Now, there are some people that would say, well, that's the price you pay, but we don't like to say that. We don't want to say that. And I don't think the people of Israel want to say that either, which is pretty amazing. A lot of people would say, just get it done and whatever it is. You could also say speed might be better for the hostages. You go through, you know, with speed, you may have a better chance because they're in deep trouble. They're in deep trouble. You saw October 7th, and you saw what the damage and the horror that they committed. People can't forget that. You know, they tend to forget it, but they can't forget. That was one of the most evil things I've ever seen. And you just cannot forget that. So we're very much involved. The Prime Minister's involved. I'm involved. And I think I can speak. We just signed a very big trade deal, the biggest of them all yesterday, right? And Israel has a lot of responsibility. They're hampered by the fact that you still have 20 hostages or so. And the people of Israel are very concerned about the 20 hostages. It's very interesting. You could say they could be more concerned about retribution than the 20 hostages, but they really want the 20 hostages to survive and live to make it. You know, many of the hostages came to my office in the Oval Office, and I was amazed by, I would ask them the question, was there any sign of love? Was there any sign of, when you were a hostage and you have all of these people from Hamas around you, sometimes hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you're a hostage and you're being stored in a pipe. It's not even really, a cave, or it's a pipe, a little pipe. And some said they didn't think they were going to make it because they were losing air. There wasn't enough air, and they'd open up the pipe just in time, but they didn't do it on purpose. They just happened to open it. They got lucky. But I said, did they ever wink at you and say, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay? Did they ever give you some extra food, even if it was a piece of bread? Did they ever give you anything during that time? And some were there for 400 or 500 days now, right? It's a long time, a year and a half, more than that. And not one person said there was any love from anybody. You know, in other words, you have hundreds of people, and you see it in the movies where somebody's a prisoner and somebody's helping. You even see it with Germany, where people would be let into a house and live in an attic in secret. You know, you see signs of some. I said, did you see anything like, did they wink at you? Did they say, don't worry, you're going to be okay? I never received, I ask that question all the time. I've never received one answer that said, yeah, they really wanted to help. No, the hatred is just incredible.
Yeah.
I will say that Iran, I think, interjected themselves in this last negotiation. Can you imagine the beating they took? We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly. They've been saying, Iran's been sending out bad signals, I'll tell you. For a country that just got wiped out, they've been sending very bad signals, very nasty signals. And they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that. They were talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. They were interviewed on a recent show, and the foreign minister saying things that he shouldn't be talking about, shouldn't be saying. And I think they got involved in this negotiation, telling Hamas and giving Hamas signals and orders, and that's not good. That's not good. Well, I don't want to use the word lying. All I know is we'd have a good talk, and it seemed on, let's say, 3 occasions, it seemed that we were going to have a ceasefire and maybe peace, and you divide it up and you do whatever you have to do, that obviously, to get to the end. And all of a sudden, missiles are flying into Kiev and other places. And I say, what's that all about? I spoke to him 3 or 4 hours ago, and it looked like we were on our way. And then I'd say, forget it, and I'm not going to talk anymore. You know, this has happened on too many occasions, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Successful social media site.
Russia moved up the deadline. It's now 10 or 12 days. Is the sanction the same, that you're going to slap 100% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia?
So what I'm doing is we're going to do secondary sanctions, unless we make a deal. And we might make a deal. I don't know. I don't know. You don't know. It's we've done so many peace deals. This is the one I started out with. And, you know, this is, I know President Putin called me. He wanted to know if I could help him with Iran. I said, no, I don't need your help with Iran. I need your help with Russia. And so that's the one deal that continues to linger. And, you know, we're losing 5,000. They're losing. I'm not losing. You're not losing. But 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian kids a week are dying. And that's not mentioning the people that are dying also in towns where, you know, he's lobbing missiles into certain towns like Kiev. And he's got to make a deal. It's too many people are dying. It's a really bloody war. And the 5 is now, they're really telling me that number is obsolete. It's like 7.
That's terrible.
So you have 7,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying every single week for no reason whatsoever. So you would think, based on common sense, you would think he'd want to make a deal. We'll find out.
No communication with Israel publicly? Have you had any other Ukrainian channels conversations with the Russians reiterating this?
In what?
reiterating this new pressure and deadline.
Yeah, well, we're going to have well, you're the press. I'm reiterating it to you. I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is. And look, the Russian economy, I don't want to do that to Russia. I love the Russian people. They're great people. I don't want to do that to Russia. But this thing, they're losing a lot of Russians. They've lost 1 million Russians. And that's the, sons. That's the sons and daughters of Russian families. They leave the house. They go, bye, Mom, bye, Dad, and then they get blown away. And Ukrainian, too. Look at Ukraine. It's a disaster what's happened there. But it continues to go on. As you know, we made a deal where the European Union is essentially involved, but it's NATO, and we're supplying weapons to NATO. NATO's now paying because the United States, because of Biden's in for $350 billion, the European nations are in for about $100 billion. Should be the opposite way, by the way, because we have a big ocean in between. Should be the opposite way. But I think that eventually something's going to happen. It should happen fast. So many people are dying. When I settled out with Congo and Rwanda, they lost almost 8 million people. And it just made so much sense. And if I didn't get involved, they wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about settling it. It was just going on forever. And nobody could go into those territories because they'd get killed. They'd get killed. And now they have I hear it's a whole different ballgame. We settled it. This is one that should be settled. Russia, Ukraine. This is one that really should be settled.
Mr. President, we didn't completely rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell when you landed. Is that something you would ever consider, and why?
Pardon for who?
For Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it. So,
Mr. President, your opposition to offshore wind is well known.
Yeah.
Do you think that drawing, I think I heard you say something the other day, that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person.
Do you think it was fraudulent?
I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women, that I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. I was at a very high position, pretty much all my life. In all fairness, I've been doing this for a long time. I had the top show on television. I had the #1 bestsellers. I had everything, right? And I was a very successful business guy. He was a very controversial. Who would do a controversial drawing? Now, with that being said, they say there were many letters done by many people, and many big people, big successful people. But I just don't. When you talk about files, I just keep going back, and other people too. Even the enemy says this thing is not correct, because if we had it, we would have used it on the guy. It's a bad issue. They say it's a good issue for Trump. Do you know that my poll numbers are up 4.5 points since this ridiculous Epstein stuff? My poll numbers have gone up 4.5 points because people don't buy it. Okay, people don't buy it. And he's gone, and we want to focus on trade deals. I want to focus on the deal we just made with the European Union, which is the biggest trade deal in history. It's the biggest deal, I think, in history, not just trade deal. So if they would have had something, they would have used it.
And people keep writing stories about the time he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach to begin?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Mr. President,
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.